Last year I did not take guidance also. I did not take a test series. Last year my score was 249. This year I took your series and we also had a lot of guidance sessions. I think that was a very crucial role in my entire journey because this year my score improved from 249 to 274.
Yes, Mr. Shubham.
Hello, sir.
Chaliye, so let us start.
Ji, sir.
Okay, Shubham. So let me ask you by introducing yourself. Please tell me about yourself.
Hello, sir. I am Shubham Jain. I have done my schooling from Mayur Vihar in Delhi. After that, I pursued law from National Law University, Delhi.
Right.
I did my BA LLB honors there. After graduation, I have been preparing for the civil services. Briefly, I also practice as a Supreme Court advocate.
Okay. Now, tell me which year pass out you are from NLU Delhi?
So I graduated in 2021.
Okay.
This was my second attempt.
Okay, this was your second attempt. Okay, that is
Yes,
your
sir.
Okay. Now, what about the constitutional law? How did you prepare for the constitutional law?
So constitutional law, primarily, I had my class notes from college. Besides that, the Dukki books which are available in the market. So they were very useful. But for fundamental rights specifically, my constitutional law notes from college were useful. Besides that, I also used certain books and internet quotes from various scholars. So, for example, quotes by judges, as well as HMC revised quotes, etc., judicial scholars, whatever they said. In fact, sir, I also referred to your materials. You used to put at one point certain quotes, scholarly quotes.
That I prepared scholarly quotes with regard.
So on the Telegram group, you used to have that.
Understood.
So
remember, yeah.
I looked up a lot of sources for value addition materials. Besides that, my view was that by preparing major Supreme Court judgments in the previous year for any current issue within the syllabus would also be very relevant as a conclusion point while writing an answer. If you conclude with a current development, I thought that can add certain value to a statement.
Okay, that's good. You have got very good marks of, I think, 274.
Yes, sir.
Now, how about the philosophical question? What did you refer for that, or did you sort of the college stuff that you had already? You simply copied that, or something new was added? Philosophical question, like, do you think fundamental right have been successful? Something like that, yeah.
Sir, normally fundamental right philosophical questions which I found, they were mostly quotes by judges from different judgments.
Okay.
So even the quote about affirmative action in this year's law optional paper, that was also from the Neil Nunia's case from the OBC reservation one. Yes. And many other cases, especially Article 12, etc., they were mostly from different judgments.
So you simply took the quotes from the judgment in those philosophical.
Yes, sir. So if you identify which judgment is being talked about, and mostly they were the most important quote of a judge. So even the Neil Nunia's quote, it was Justice Chandrachud's most iconic statement about equality. So if you identify the judgment, then I think you can answer the entire question very effectively also. So that was one approach.
Please start by, this is the statement of so and so judgment. That itself gives you a very good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That I think gives a lot of value.
Okay, now the international law part. How did you start it with that? Which books or source that you referred, and in general, how did you prepare for it?
Sir, international law was slightly difficult. I think the syllabus is too broad. It is not very concise in any way, and many sources are not covered. Many of the topics are not covered in any source.
The standard source.
So I studied initially from this book called Malcolm Shaw, but I found it to be very bulky. So I don't recommend it for anyone, and I don't think it's meant for UPSC level preparation. S.K. Kapoor is a book that I used ultimately. I found that very effective. And besides that, a lot of internet sources, especially for topics like terrorism, hijacking convention, etc. Most of these you will have to prepare on your own because the basic contents of whatever convention exists, all of those, if you prepare on your own and make your own notes. If you make your own notes, you will remember also better.
Okay, so you're saying that SK Kapoor normally, and for the other fringe topics, you Googled and sort of prepared notes for that, right?
Yes, sir. And besides that, International Court of Justice has given major judgments. So I did not read any of the judgments, but the ICJ website has the summary of most of those judgments. That what was the opinion of which judge, etc. So especially for topics like genocide convention or the nuclear weapons case.
Okay.
So this is something I did, that I looked at all the opinions of the nuclear weapons case, and I prepared that, okay,
There was
this
one
is,
PDF also, if I think, right? That PDF had all the major judges' opinion, etc. in one. That is what you're referring to in that ICJ website.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I looked up most of some of the major judges of that. So, for example, Justice Veera Mantri was the member of Sri Lanka. He said that nuclear weapons should not be allowed in any circumstance, and that was one of my concluding statements. My planned conclusions. Ki if a question on this topic comes, I will just end up writing as a value addition point.
Okay, that's good. That is very good. Okay, you even remember the name of the judge who concluded, right? So that is actually quite good. Okay. Now let us come to the paper second. Now in paper one itself, which part did you do that 3 questions that you did from part A or part B?
The constitutional law is what I preferred, because that was more certain. Questions were still on predictable lines. International law is always a little more dicey, in my opinion, and generally also because the sources are scarce. In constitutional law, you always know what a judge has said. If you read constitutional law in depth, you will always have more content. In international law, the syllabus is also very broad, so you will have to remember too much, and ultimately they ask very pointed questions. So my own personal understanding was that on every topic I know a little bit, not a lot. So my preference was to always attempt constitutional law questions.
Now let us come to paper two. What about law of crime? How did you handle that?
Law of crime, sir, I once again referred to my class notes primarily. We were taught that subject in extreme depth. So most of, and sir, because the law of crimes paper 2 has a very high repetition rate. A lot of questions get repeated. So I looked up PYQs very extensively for that. With a few friends of mine, I prepared model answers for a lot of questions. On this particular topic also, judges quotes, especially on topics like death penalty. So from various judgments, if a judge has given a certain statement, you should remember them, because that can be a good introduction and a conclusion. So besides that, sir, criminal law, you should remember, I think, all provisions, that what is the content of every provision, what are the 5 factors that constitute theft, what is the difference between theft, misappropriation, etc. I think if you give the entire content of the law very clearly, and then you give what a judicial pronouncement says, I think that sufficiently answers the question, at least to the extent that you might get 5 marks. And then beyond that, if you're able to add some value, you can get 6.
6, 7 is the highest that you will get into. Okay. Now let us come to the law of tort, because law of tort, people often say it is very precise. You can have 10, sometime even a week you can prepare it all. Do you think that is the case, or you should be more detailed in law of torts?
Sir, I think it's not wise to ignore law of torts, but definitely the number of topics are also less, and many of them are not evolving anymore. So there is no current development in the law of torts that you can look at. So
Someone might disagree, right? Product liability and all those stuff.
that is true. Yes, sir. Consumer Protection Act is something that I think.
Okay, but for law it is very correct. There is no current, mostly contemporary. That is, you are very correct.
Ji, sir.
Okay, then what are the sources that you referred?
Sir, R.K. Bangia is one book that I used. For torts, I found the Dukki I was referring to. I thought there can be a little more content, and I already had Bangia, which is also not a very big book. So I referred to Bangia. But I think A.K. Jain, Dukki, if someone refers.
No, everyone. In fact, I think Pallavi, Kritika, you, everyone is referring to that Dukis. That is actually quite a good book, right? Dukis are.
Yes, sir.
It is not bad book. It is basically the gist of all
Yes,
the
sir.
books, right? So ultimately, it is a sort of
Yes, sir.
a commentary itself. So it is not a bad thing to study. Yeah.
Yes, and for exam time, it's a very relevant book because it gives everything in a concise manner.
Okay. Now, what about the second part, the part B? Let us start with the contract law and specifically tell me, some of the topics which are act in itself, right? Like negotiable, partnership, sales and goods. How did you specifically handle that?
Sir, I think paper 2 part B is the toughest of all parts of the law syllabus because there is already 4-5 acts in the contract law syllabus, and after that there are multiple statutes for the contemporary legal developments. And the most important parts in all of these is the section numbers. So there are too many sections to remember, and in contracts there are many cases also. So I prepared a lot for it. In fact, contract law is the most studied subject for me. That I spent too much time studying contract, revising every portion of agency sections, etc., etc. So I refer to your notes also, sir, the notes that you had, and besides that, the Dukki and the Bear Act. So I thought Bear Act is the most important in this case. That I made notes of every important section that exists, and on beside that I put barely the names of the cases, that which case to write with which section, and I had to
Did
revise
you
it
prepare something that last moment that notes, or did you simply studied your normal notes, or you took that?
Yes, sir. I had a 2-page sheet with only section number, case, section number, case. And by that time, I had read at least the content of the cases enough times that I knew the content of the case.
So
But
simply
just
by
section.
looking at the case, you can recall, okay, this is the
Yes, sir. But I just had the section number or case side by side लिख लिया था so that I can have a last minute revision for it. That was a 2-page sheet itself.
And what about those topics which is act in itself and negotiable? So पूरी sections पढ़े थे या only the important part or the repeated questions?
So for Negotiable Instruments Act, I referred to my class notes because they were comprehensive and they had some judgments also which were enough, that nothing more was needed on that end. But sir, for law of partnership, I referred to the Dukki for partnerships, and specific relief act, I think I did not do much.
No, it is not required. So what about Sales of Goods Act?
Sale of Goods Act, sir. Sale of Goods Act, I tried to do a Dukki. I ultimately looked up online sources for basic explanation, and I did not study it in much depth. I had 3-4 basic cases for every topic, but I did not revise it also. If there were too many questions, I would have probably missed out on it.
Okay. Now, what about the CLD part? How did you prepare for that?
CLD, sir, I kept making notes because from different class notes from different sources. I also referred to your material, de facto laws material for it. And I prepared my own summaries, section wise. There were not many cases except for IPR. Intellectual property rights is the only place where there are too many cases. I have prepared a list of major NGT cases that exist. That's the only thing they can ask in environment law. And besides that, not many other subjects. There's 3-4 cases in Information Technology Act, etc. So
you are saying that only you prepare sort of a gist of them or 1 and 2 cases, that's it.
yes, sir. But I made a list of all the important sections and their content, because most of the topics are asked from what are the provisions of any act regarding a certain point. So I prepared the section numbers very well. This was just through thorough revision that
No, I remember also in the in this IPR questions even wrote section in bracket, right? So that
yes,
is
sir.
very
That
nice.
was something I tried to do because I think that makes a good impression that ultimately a person is aware of what they're talking about.
Very correct. Okay, now what about environmental law? You told the NGT cases, but environmental law, new students specifically, right? When they see environmental laws of India, right? So they sort of think that it is a whole book in itself, right? So how did you, which law specifically you prepared, or you just went with the NGT judgment, nothing else?
No, sir. So I took out the list of about the most important 10-12 acts,
Okay.
I went through most of them are not big acts. So I made a table where act and then important sections of that act. So wherever there is a body which is established under the act, such as the Central Pollution Control Board, then which section describes it, what are the powers of that body, and is there an offense which is prescribed under that act, and is there a major definition under the act. So all of these I prepared in a tabular form. So, and then I would revise that. So it was 4 or 5 sections beside every act, and I would remember ki, okay, not every act establishes bodies. For example, Air Act only allows the Central Pollution Control Board to take up extra powers.
Okay. So
I
you
did
sort
that.
of made a skeleton structure of all those
Yes,
acts
sir.
and the major provision, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
even if there's a twister question, you could at least answer something, I think, right? At least
Yes, sir.
something.
So 4 or 5 sections maximum, because there are too many acts and too many sections. So I realized that I will do 4 or 5 sections at most for every act. And all of them generally go in a similar pattern. The definitions are normally under section 2 or section 3 of the act. And besides that, then there are bodies which are going to be established, but the composition of the bodies is normally very similar, that they will be appointed by the central government or the state government, etc. So it was only remembering the section number which was important. The content was mostly very similar at times.
So you did a very, good job in that. Okay, that's very good. Okay. Now, let us come to, apart from preparation, right? The interview part. How was your interview, right? I know you have told me once before, but I want you to repeat it, okay? Because so that this video will go and people will watch it. What kind of question that you get, and how was the the whole overall माहौल कैसा था interview का?
सर इंटरव्यू माहौल काफी ऐसे कॉर्डियल होता है, तो अदरवाइज so I got Mr. R.N. Chaube's board.
Okay.
So he is generally known to be someone who likes to ask questions outside the DAF. And it started very cordially. He asked me to introduce myself to and give my brief academic and work experience background. And right after that, he said that, okay, I'll ask questions outside law.
Okay.
And so most of the interview did not involve questions of law. The only question that I can remember specifically is Chaube sir only asked, why do they say law is an ass?
Okay.
Which I was not very well able to answer, but that was a light-hearted note. Most of
Told
the
me,
questions were,
you misunderstood the question actually.
yes, sir.
Very correct, right? And in the GS part, what I mean, apart from law, what else question that you get?
Sir, there were questions on the economic scenario, on the three national education policy and the 3 language formula, as
Okay.
well as what should be the medium of primary education. Outside of that, there were questions on rural development, as well as Article 370 and what is India doing for national security on that front. Most of the rest of the questions were on economy, on crowding out investment, how does public investment impact private investment. Something on there were a few questions on the insolvency code, which were directly from my DAF. I worked on the insolvency code in the past. And the others were revolving around foreign policy and terrorism, especially our policies regarding Pakistan and Kashmir. So most of my interview was on international relations as well as domestic education and economic
Marks
policy.
did you get?
So I got 195 this year.
So that was the very good result.
Yes.
Okay, now I will assume you to be a fresher itself because it is second attempt. Last time was not a wholehearted attempt, I know, right? So this was actually the best attempt. And now to the person who are thinking of preparing, right? Today itself, I think few people came to meet me, right? And they were in 4th, 5th year, right? And they wanted to how to go about it, right? So what message do you want to give them that how should they start?
I think 4th or 5th year is the ideal time to start preparation. And the best way is to first get comfortable in general studies to some extent.
Okay.
And to keep your law notes intact. Or if you've studied law properly in college, I think you should not decide that you should throw away the notes because you're not appearing for a legal job anymore. I think those notes are very much relevant. In fact, more constitutional law, etc., is more relevant for UPSC than probably someone's litigation practice.
Totally
That
agree.
is my opinion, sir. So that is, I think, how one should start. I think getting comfortable with general studies, the basic outline of the entire UPSC syllabus first, gives a lot more confidence because you're already in college. If you study law, you might get bored. But right after, once you're comfortable in general studies, you should revise the entire early subjects, contract law, criminal law. These are mostly subjects which are taught in the first, second year, third year at most. So I think after that, uh, before you give the prelims exam effectively, I think twice you should be done with your syllabus. That is my view, especially the law syllabus, because the overall law syllabus is very huge. And doing it in the for the first time after prelims can be very daunting to some extent. It's possible, a lot of people do it, but at least revising it once helps. Otherwise, you will have to spend a lot more time. Ideally, for example, so last year I also did not have so much time and I did not prepare well the law syllabus. So a lot of my time went in the law, revising law only.
Okay, so
Last year I did
even if
not take
you are
guidance
law,
also.
sorry, what were you saying?
Last year I did not take guidance also. I did not take a test series. This year, last year my score was 249. This year I took your series and we also had a lot of guidance sessions. I think that was a very crucial role in my entire journey because this year my score improved from 249 to 274.
Almost 20-30 marks difference. See,
Yes,
that
sir.
they always tell, right? You guys, especially from good universities, you are already very nice. You have very good knowledge, right? The only thing is requires a little bit, that last refinement, 1 mark, so half marks in each answer. That actually sums up to 20-30 marks in it.
Yes, sir.
Now, one thing that I was asking was with regard to that you are saying essentially that first done with your GS and then go for the law preparation. I mean, the law graduate, or you should start them simultaneously.
Sir, I think for most law graduates, at least recent law graduates, they generally have a bit of fair memory that goes on. But I just personally feel that the law syllabus is very vast. So once you sit down for law, then don't deviate from it, is basically the point. That it will take 1.5, 2 months of dedicated preparation for law. So before that, getting comfortable with general studies is something that I recommend because otherwise, if you look at GS for the first time and you've only prepared for law first, that can intimidate someone. And a lot more score also goes for the general studies paper. So this is my general view that you should know what is general studies capable requiring the requirements of general studies papers, and then you should begin your law preparation properly.
Okay, so we are saying that be with law, then be with law only, right?
Yes, sir.
देखो फिर law अच्छे से prepare करो, then you go about it.
हाँ.
Okay. चलिए, तो that is the and that was my end question, right? So again, you are appearing this year, right? Hopefully, we will speak again with a better, rank. Okay, so
Thank you, sir.
okay.
I hope
So
your blessings stay with me.
yeah, definitely. So Williams हो गया है, right? Start writing answers if you really, you have to write answers again. Okay.
Yes, sir. Very soon.
Right again, and let us meet. Okay. तो end up करते हैं इसे.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.